Morning. How are you all doing? Good? Yeah, it's great to be here at QUT. It's actually my first time that I'm speaking at QUT, so it's always nice to be at Griffith and just across the river and to look at a beautiful QUT. You guys have a really, really nice campus. Who's all not from QUT? It's a beautiful campus, isn't it? Yeah, it's really, really nice. So, as Cleo said, so I'm Christoph Nedopil, and I'm the director of the Griffith Asia Institute, one of the largest institutes at the Griffith Business School, and one of the oldest institutes at Griffith University. We've been around for 25 years. I've been in this role for the last 2.5 years. I lived in China before, I lived in the US before, and I'm from Germany, as you might hear. So it's always great kind of to judge other people's countries, but now I would consider Australia my own country, so I can judge it with even more fervor. So Future Made in Australia, I guess many of you have heard about it, what it is. So I'll talk a little bit about it, critically evaluate it, but obviously the final judgment is still out. It's still in its first year of implementation. So Future Made in Australia was introduced 1.5 years ago in April 2024 to really drive, in many ways, the green transition. It's a separate budget from the climate budget. There's a separate budget for overall climate issues. But the government allocated about $23 billion over the next 10 years for a number of different technology developments, transition developments in the metal space, in the hydrogen space, particularly in the hydrogen space, and in the energy space. I think what the government tries to do is to actually de-risk a lot of innovation with this policy, rather than necessarily scale kind of just the rolling out of green energy around the country. That's my hope, because actually a lot of green energy is just bankable, doesn't need government money. Where we need government money potentially is, of course, to de-risk and to start innovating and to push frontier technologies. And we're seeing that really kind of in the hydrogen space, ideally. So that was 2024. Government got re-elected, and so there was hope. There was a lot of hope that this will be accelerated. Back then, it was also clear. Now I need my notes. What Albanese said, that this is going to be a mission-driven approach in some ways. So he says, this is not old-fashioned protectionism or isolation, it is a new competition. We must recognize that the partners we seek are moving to the beat of a new economic reality. Now, I think one of the big competitors that is moving extremely fast is, of course, China. So without a doubt, Chinese green innovation is, as an overall kind of stretching from the new energy vehicles to the energy generation to energy storage, is the best. There are pockets where others are potentially as good, but as an overall economy, as an overall supply chain, including, of course, the critical minerals that were mentioned this morning, China is controlling. And I think that's partly the beat of the new economic reality. The new economic reality is also, and I'll show it also with some very interesting studies that my colleagues did, the new economic reality is also that green energy is just a lot cheaper than fossil fuel, particularly in the electricity space. So is this now a mission-driven approach, that we believe that the green economy is the new reality and that we have to double down on it? Where are we overall? Now, what's kind of interesting, if we believe that this is a mission-driven economy, shouldn't the whole government be behind it? Shouldn't the whole country be behind it? And there was a number of contradicting policies that have been issued already last year that I kind of had made me doubt that this is actually a fully mission-driven approach. So I think most importantly, the future gas strategy was also announced pretty much around the same time, so May 2024, a month later. The future gas strategy does include an expansion of gas in Australia. Now that makes, of course, all the gas companies very happy. And there are a couple, and all the people that work in gas, they are very happy about this. But it is definitely not in line with a fossil fuel phase out that we're also discussing right now at COP. We had the Queensland 2035 Clean Economic Pathway and the Queensland Renewable Act and the Queensland Green Job Act. Now, Queensland also had a new government since then and reversed at least parts of this and slows down some of this transition. This year, we had, I think, a couple of interesting publications from the government as well to understand whether it's a mission-driven approach. First of all, we had a very interesting, and I'll talk about this in a second too, the climate, what's it called? The climate risk analysis of Australia. How bad is the climate risk for Australia? And it's pretty bad. At the same time, actually, in the same week, the Australian government released then its national determined contribution goals, which is 62 to 70% emission reduction by 2035. Now, who thinks that's ambitious? Most in kind of the environmental space actually think it's pretty below what's possible. Even as many in the industry think it's below what's possible. It's very realistic, but it's not ambitious. So if you're an emission-driven approach, what signal are we sending with this? So here already, I think, walking back, and importantly, kind of my research is also on sustainable finance. After more than 2 years of work, Australia finally published a non-binding sustainable finance taxonomy. Most sustainable finance taxonomies are never binding, so nothing to be worried about, which has some innovation, but has a number of really important omissions as well. So there was a lot of work, 2.5 years. I kind of can tell you from China, which is a much more complex, much bigger economy, it takes them half a year, 9 months, to update their taxonomy or to publish the first one. A country of 25 million with 5 major banks, it takes 2.5 years. A lot of consultation. So what challenges existed from the start? So we have, as I said, and it's just one of many contradicting plans. No clear fossil fuel phase-out target, no fossil export transition target, no energy efficiency targets, and I also believe a misunderstanding of Australia's industrial capabilities. I don't think that there's an overall integrated one government approach. I think there's still a number of different kind of very contradicting needs, and I think a lack of overall ambition. So that's kind of what challenges existed from the start. Let me give you some background. I think kind of that helps us explain why it's so difficult. So I first came to Australia in 2005. I studied at UQ. That's when Australia's exports were about $100 billion. It's fantastic what happened over the past 20 years, and particularly in the minerals space, partly also in the services space, but I think that's kind of dwarfing compared to the mineral space. So really great exports in the mineral space, and particularly coal, gas as well, and then of course iron ore. Now, about 60% of our exports are carbon-intense exports. Now, doing a transition requires, of course, to think about what does it mean for our overall economy, particularly also in regards to our exports, that we've, I think, all relied on, and Brisbane has become more beautiful because of the great exports in the mineral space, and particularly the coal space that we have. So that's number one. How do we deal with that? Number two background is, if you want to kind of diversify your economy, and as some said, like, oh, let's get manufacturing back to Australia. Is it really realistic? I can tell you it's absolutely unrealistic. Kind of shipping anything from Sydney to Brisbane, it's going to take how long? 2 days? If you want to make an innovation, if you want to be an innovative company here, and you need a part that is in Sydney, you have to wait for 2 days to kind of, oh, it broke. Another 2 days. Go to Shenzhen, go to anywhere in China, you have it in half an hour. And because it's not fast enough, they're building now drones, so it's only 11 minutes until you get your spare part. 2 days versus 11 minutes. So if you want to have rapid innovation, it just slows you down. In terms of transport costs, in terms of assembling stuff, we also don't have the agglomerations that are needed to really build something at scale. And then we're far away. So logistics costs are also really expensive. Now here you see kind of where our complexity is in terms of the world. So how well are we connected and how complex is it? So low relative complexity, high relative complexity. We are at the lowest end. We are countries similar to Bangladesh, Haiti, Cuba in terms of our economic complexity. Don't kid yourself, we're not going to be a manufacturing powerhouse. It's not our strength. Doesn't mean that we can't innovate on specific things, but in terms of mass manufacturing, solar panel manufacturing, anything like this, we're not going to succeed. Don't waste your resources on this. I think it's so clear from where we are in this world. And it's okay. Our riches are not coming from manufactured goods exports. Services, minerals, commodities. Another important background, and this is from this climate risk report, our country is pretty at high climate risk across the country from a number of different sources, water availability, critical infrastructure, ecosystems services disruptions, and of course also then more insects like flies, which probably many of you know as well. The hotter it gets, often we get more flies, and also other insects, and particularly also sometimes illness-bearing insects. So the climate risk assessment, I think, is pretty clear around this. And they say kind of by 2049, with a median value, that's 1.5 degrees Celsius warming. Who believes still that we're going to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius warming? Matthew, you're an optimist. Thank you. Kind of believe in technology or the humanity. I don't know which one it is. So 1.5 degrees, that's going to be $40 billion in annual damages. Now, I don't believe that we're going to reach 1.5. And here kind of, if we have by 2090 an average annual Australian increase by 2 degrees, which is 2 degrees by 2090. That's beautiful. It's 5 times as much in terms of economic damage. So just to kind of, the investments that we have to do to kind of address, just the losses that we have to kind of bear to address climate change are pretty brutal across Australia. Where are we now? So this is kind of the background. Where are we now in terms of mission-driven approach? This is the fossil fuel subsidies that we see across the country. The yellow line is the most recent line, the yellow bar. Is it decreasing or increasing? It's bloody increasing. Australia is still spending more and more on fossil fuel subsidies. The federal government, the Queensland government, so most importantly is the fuel tax credit scheme. That's $10.2 billion in the 2024-2025 budget. About $1 billion really directly benefits the coal industry. Do they need that money? I'll ask. Queensland is among the states kind of the most important supporter for the fossil fuel industry, with long-term commitments of about $6 billion. So that's just the fossil fuel subsidies. Do you remember how much it was for the Future Made in Australia plan? Test. 25 billion. So that's pretty brutal. What else are we doing? We're bailing out, and over the last weeks, bailing out fossil fuel intense companies. The $600 million of the Mount Isa Glencore factory. Now Glencore has a profit of $6 to $10 billion every year. And we're going to spend $600 million on this Mount Isa plant to save 600 jobs, and the plant is going to be closed in 2028. I don't understand it. It's kind of, I think $600 million can be used much more effectively to save 600 jobs. Tomago aluminum smelter, also partly owned by Rio Tinto, $10 billion in profits. $1 billion spent, kind of promised by the Australian government. So these are not fossil fuel subsidies, this is bailouts. And here kind of, I think, I want to quote Alison Reeve from the Grattan Institute, who wrote, "We often worry about government picking winners, and the process in the process distorting efficient investment and leading to lower growth overall. Now that's potentially true. But the bigger worry is, in challenging economic conditions, is that losers pick the government. The Australian Financial Review worries that the government insists on underwriting failing relics to build a fortress Australia's. It is cosseting select manufacturing industries at the expense of the nation's overall international edge on price, quality, and innovation. Now, instead of investing in new stuff, we're bailing out the old stuff. It's actually not efficient. So we're failing to grasp opportunities. The hydrogen space, I have the feeling we've almost given up on the hydrogen space because it didn't grow as fast as we thought it would be. We thought it's going to be a magic bullet and we're going to grow it very quickly. Fortescue withdrew from Gladstone project. Also, of course, when the new government came in because they didn't find good markets. Now, Fortescue probably is one of the companies that actually doesn't care about short-term profitability as much, but they still didn't see any more support from the Queensland government. Meanwhile, and I can tell you that China is pushing ahead on the hydrogen economy. By 2035, they want to have a complete hydrogen economy. Already the electrolyzer orders are really exponential growth. So pretty much doubling, tripling every year. It's really, really impressive what's happening. And I can tell you from the German car industry that also thought it's like electric cars are not coming because we tried it in 2015 and it didn't work. They gave up on it. And in 2025, they lost more than half of their market share within 5 years because nobody wants to buy German cars anymore because they're not innovative anymore. So never underestimate the China speed. And here just a side note, because it drives me sometimes nuts to have these discussions. It's like, but renewables are going to increase our cost. Renewables, that's why our electricity prices have gone up. So our colleagues, Professor Simshauser and Dr. Gilmore, made a study to say, what if we wouldn't have moved into more renewables over the last years? And they compared the prices between a business as usual from 2001 to 2025 with an expansion of fossil fuel industry versus the renewable. And what they find is quite striking. That of course in 2021 and 2001, on a per unit basis, coal was the cheapest form of electricity, if you leave out the CO2 emissions. By 2025, the price of both coal and natural gas had increased at multiples above general rates of inflation. The 2025 counterfactual scenarios, which deploy new coal-fired power plants and gas-fired generation with no renewables, proved to be surprisingly expensive. When we model the Queensland region, given existing trajectories of generation technologies with the power, blah, 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 we find cost and price are 30 to 50% higher with coal and gas. I need to stop. 30 to 50% higher if we wouldn't have done the renewables. Now that's quite clear. So I just want to compare the mission-driven approach of China versus the mission-driven approach of Australia. In China, it's very clear, a very clear support for green industry, inclusion of the steel sector and metal sector in the emission trading system, hydrogen subsidies on all fronts, green energy requirements, so that's not subsidized, it's requirements. You have to have a specific level of green energy, for example, in steel production, and of course the new energy vehicle support policies. Now, careful, the Chinese government is not supporting individual companies, but industries. And I think that's really, really different to what we're doing. We're supporting individual industries, the same crap that the European Union does. If the companies fail, like Norwald in Europe, the whole industry fails. In China, it's much more industry support and through both regulation and financial subsidies. The green finance support is pretty important as well, with the central bank really pushing to banks. It's like, where is your green credit growth? Where's your green credit growth? If you have green credit growth, your financing costs will be lower and you can have more profitability. At the same time, China is also keeping the fossil fuel industry alive. So it's about 60 gigawatt of coal-fired power plants being built this year, 60 gigawatts, but that compares to 400 gigawatts of renewables. So I call it the Panda-Dragon approach. Is China the greenest country in the world or the dirtiest country in the world? Both. Now, Australia, where should we go? Utilize our strengths in green energy. What is Queensland called? The Sunshine State. We have so much sunshine. It is such a fantastic opportunity, and we've been talking about it. So when I gave a speech the other day, it's like, do you think the 85% renewable energy target for Queensland is ambitious? It's like, yeah, that's like 10 gigawatts in 10 years. It's like 1 gigawatt a year. Pakistan does 25 gigawatt per year. China does 400 gigawatt per year. And we complain that 1 gigawatt per year is ambitious. That's just not cutting it. 400% renewable energy target. That's when we're really talking. Build on Australia's specific capacity. So green commodity exports. What can we do? Green hydrogen and green derivatives as energy storage. Green hydrogen and derivatives in industrial processes. Green iron and steel. So we need some support on infrastructure and investment, not the companies. AI data centers. And I think there's actually some movement here as well. High energy intensity. We're a trusted governance model for the world. We're not kind of then processing data in some rogue states. We can do it here, and we can export that as well. These are commodities, I think, of the future. Stop supporting failing companies. Kind of have a clear definition of what we actually mean by future economic strength. And I think there is, of course, a lot of work going on, but we have to also be honest what we can't and can do. And distinguish what is actually national security. An aluminum smelter is not national security. It's nice to have, but it's not national security. Rare earths? Maybe. Rare earths, mineral kind of mining? I don't know. Rare earths processing? Definitely. Now I want to conclude. I don't think that Australia is yet a mission-driven economy, which is fine. Doesn't have to be. Not everybody kind of needs to be a mission-driven economy. But who knows Kevin the Koala? It's a book, a children's book. Nobody knows it. It's the koala who can't drop from the tree. Never can play with his friends because he's so lazy. I feel a little bit like this here. Koala clinging to the fossil fuel industry is like, let go, come on, koala. And it's like, I can't, I don't want to. I think the risk though is that this lack of policy direction actually also undermines investment, like what we've seen in Gladstone. If kind of there's this back and forth, it's like, oh, we want to be a green economy, but let's support all the gas industry. We want to be a green economy, but let's expand our coal mining. That doesn't work. That's kind of not good for investors because they want to have a clear direction. The Australian government says, we are going to decarbonize. That's going to unleash investments. We're going to decarbonize, but it's not going to release investments. So I think there's still a lot of work to do, and I'll conclude here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.